What is up, guys? It is the Sound Alchemist, and today I'm back to bring you some D&D on Sunday Fun Day. So, I decided to kind of redo the first part and make it a little bit more narrative. So, this will be a 2-for-1. So you're going to enjoy the first part that I gave you on the lore for Snowfallow Keep, which is the session that me and a couple of our buddies are doing alongside Gershwin. So you're going to see that one in a narrative form, and then I'll give you part 2 as well. So it's like a 2-for-1 in this video. So yeah, if you like D&D, let us know how your sessions are going, what characters you play, and yeah, let's continue on. Dungeons and Dragons, Session 1. Snowfallow Keep. The players: Kiria, tiefling ranger; Stigner, the half-orc fighter; Clamor, the rogue kenku; and Xekar, the aarakroca cleric. The paths of these 4 adventurers have crossed on this fated day, as they each enter the town of Snowfallow Keep. Surprisingly enough, they each enter the tavern, and they go straight to the bounty wall. Seeing as how destiny has brought them here together, they decide to go hunting for wolves. Upon leaving the tavern, they see a group of giants, and amongst them, a giant amongst giants stood there. He was a cloud giant by the name of Zigzag, and he was about to leave the town to gather firewood for the town. Kiria decided that following this giant as their bodyguard would be the best course of action, and so they all departed. While this group of travelers went into the woods, they learn of Zigzag's magical cloak, which grants him the ability of invisibility. This piques the interest of Clamor, for he is in search of powerful, magical items. He contemplates assassinating the giant, but Stigner places his hand upon the rogue kenku's shoulder and shakes his head. The half-orc is right, he thinks to himself. Picking a fight with a 16-foot tall giant who wields an axe at least 3 times as big as me is pretty much suicide. Perhaps another time. While Zigzag begins to hack down some trees, our group of adventurers begins to track for wolves. Kiria scouts ahead of the group, as she is best suited for this type of terrain. However, she notices that the rest of her party has left Zigzag alone. "Idiots! If we leave him, he won't pay us for being his bodyguards," she angrily says to herself, and she heads back to protect this giant. Not that he really needs protection. Xekar, the aarakroca, takes to the skies to see if he can better spot some wolves. However, what he sees is that Clamor has been stealthily getting closer and closer to the tree line. Unbeknownst to the rogue kenku, there lies a massive beast behind the bushes, and yet he approaches. A few feet behind him, Stigner clumsily trips on a snowy branch and lands right on his back. He lets out a yell as his hand axe plunges into his side. This scream catches the attention of the beast, and it lunges forth. Clamor quickly reacts as he drives his knife into the creature. This attack only angers the feral beast, as it sinks its jaws deep into Clamor. The poor kenku is but a rag doll to the beast, as he shakes the kenku amidst his jaws. Xekar and Stigner look in horror as their companion teeters on the edge of life and death. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, they rush to his aid. Xekar quickly unleashes an arrow from his longbow, but the arrow misses its target and instead plunges into Clamor. The arrow pierces clean through Clamor's side, greatly injuring him, but at least the beast has now released him from his jaws. Just then, a massive great axe comes flying forth, attempting to behead the foul creature. In trying too quickly to save his companion, the half-orc's heavy armor slides across the snowy terrain, causing him to completely miss the beast. To make matters worse, his greatsword gets stuck within a thorny bush, disarming Stigner. By this time, both Zigzag and Kiria have made their way towards all the commotion. This was no mere wolf. This was a warg that was attacking them. Now wargs are huge canine beasts that are often used as mounts by goblins. Kiria, the tiefling, fires off a well-placed arrow, striking the warg's neck. Blood begins to stream down, creating a puddle beneath the beast. Xekar, who had now regained his composure, fired off the killing blow. Stigner quickly takes out a potion and uses it on Clamor, bringing him back from the brink of death. Kiria scolds them for their foolish actions as she begins to skin the warg, for a beast this huge can certainly fetch for a lot of coin. Ha 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 ha! Xekar bellows out a laugh. What a sorry excuse of warriors you are. He picks up his firewood and begins to head back into the town. Clamor, still a bit dazed and confused from his near-death experience, stumbles deeper into the woods. Go get him, Kiria orders Stigner and Xekar, before he actually gets killed this time. I'll go make sure Xekar pays us. Once she catches up to this giant, she attempts to start conversation, asking him about a hooded man who wields a magical black blade. He sternly says no and continues walking on. Kiria pushes on the conversation until he activates his cloak and disappears. Now Kiria is not one who gives up so easily, and she tracks him back into his home in Snowfallow Keep. The cloud giant, now clearly frustrated, tells her to leave him alone, and she replies by stating that she will, once she's paid for her duties. Angrily, the massive giant reaches into his pouch and throws silver at her face. Kiria reaches for her short blades, but yields. She picks up the silver and heads towards the town's gate to await her troublesome companions. An hour goes by, and still no sight of them. She thinks the worst and rushes over to find them. Luckily, their tracks are easy to follow, and she finds them attempting to skin 2 dead wolves. Looks like you've been busy, she exclaims. No thanks to you, Clamor fires back. You're lucky to be alive, bird. Hey, watch your tongue, tiefling, Xekar rebuttals. Now, everyone relax. Let's just keep hunting these wolves and get our bounty. Then we can go back to our separate ways, says Stigner. The sound of crying rings out throughout the forest. Kiria listens. It sounds like a baby. She then takes off towards the sound. Follow me. I think I know where it's coming from. Wait, it could be a trap, Stigner says, but his plea falls on deaf ears. Kiria arrives to where the sound was coming from, but nothing. She looks around, and she sees no one. However, she hears it again. This crying noise, where could it be coming from? The left? The right? Above! Just then, a flock of mimicry birds attacks the ranger, but their small beaks and talons only fuel Kiria's anger. In a fury of blows, she makes quick work of the flock with her short swords. By the time the rest of her party get to her, the birds lay in pieces at her feet. This was the cause of the cries. Let's continue the hunt. Deeper and deeper they go into the woods, until Xekar notices a plume of smoke off in the distance. Quickly he ascends to let them know of his possible campfire, but notices someone quickly approaching. The aarakroca perches upon a tree branch and awaits the incoming creature. Lo and behold, a wolf appears, and the cleric quickly strikes it down, but not before the wolf lets out a howl. Now this would surely alert the other wolves in the area, and so our party awaits the ambush. To their surprise, it's not wolves that come, but 3 goblins. Clamor took on the role of bait, and he approached the goblins, attempting to lure them into their demise. Clamor appears to look wounded and easy pickings for the goblins, but as soon as they try to rob him, both Kiria and Xekar fire off their arrows. Kiria's was an instant kill, as her arrows pierced through the goblin's left eye. The cleric's arrow, however, hit the goblin in the chest, and he fell back. The last goblin attempted to run away, but he ran straight into Steiner's greatsword. As they began looting the goblins' bodies, Xekar noticed that his prey was still alive. With a smirk, the aarakroca uttered some words, and the goblin began to bleed from every orifice. Disgusted at what just transpired, Stigner, Kiria, and Clamor made note not to piss off Xekar. They stealthily approach the smoke, and they arrive at what seemed like the goblins' campsite. They made sure no more goblins were still within the 3 tents before looting them. The only thing that looked worth something was a wolf tooth with a bright ruby embedded in it. Stigner placed it within his backpack, and they decided to camp out for the rest of the night, while they took turns keeping watch. Session 1. End. At this point, Kiria, Stigner, Clamor, and Xekar are all at level 1. Dungeons & Dragons, Snowfallow Keep, Session 2. The players: Kiria, the tiefling ranger; Xekar, the aarakroca cleric; Michio, the human monk; and Ishamae, the human sorcerer. The morning sun awakens our group of adventurers as they begin to pack up their belongings and head back towards Snowfallow Keep. Luckily for them, the group doesn't encounter any trouble as they make their way back into the town. Stigner and Clamor immediately cash in their wolf pelts and head into the inn for some nice rest and relaxation. Xekar also cashes in his bounty, and he goes over to purchase some much needed durable armor. Now there's only one thing on Kiria's mind, and that is to get some drinks. As she makes her way to the tavern, she notices a fight about to start. A drunk human has upset a giant, but before fists were thrown, a mysterious man approaches the drunkard and waves his hand. It was subtle, but a black fog manifested briefly around the giant's head. As he quickly left, the drunkard alone, the 2 men sat back at the bar. Once again, the man in black waved his hand, and a black mist appeared. This time, it cleaned up the vomit and alcohol stains on the drunkard's clothes. Intrigued, Kiria sat next to the drunk. The tiefling attempted to spark conversation with the human drunkard, but she could assume that he was a monk or at least trained with them due to his clothes. His response greatly angered Kiria as he made a rude comment on her being a tiefling. She unsheathed her short sword and placed the blade right between the drunkard monk's thighs. "One more word about my race, and I castrate you," she whispered into his ears. "Now, barkeep, 2 drinks, and put him on his tab." By this point, the man in black had already gotten behind Kiria, and he placed his hand on her shoulder. Not a wise thing to do, especially when there's 2 of us and only 1 of you. She places her hand on the hilt of her other blade, and the air tenses around them. Bam! "Help! Help me, please!" An aarakroca runs into the tavern. "Goblins! Goblins attacked my caravan! Please! This is all I had! You have to help me! Someone, please!" Kiria puts away her short swords and chugs down the 2 drinks. "We'll help you. My pals here happen to be expert goblin hunters." The monk drunkenly agrees, and he begins to head out towards the southern caves. Kiria decides to make sure that the south was where the aarakroca got robbed. The aarakroca agrees, and our 3 newly met friends decide to go hunt for goblins. As the 3 misfit companions approach the southern gates, Kiria spots Xekar as he's now donning new chainmail armor. "Hey Xekar, let's put that armor to the test. Won't you join us for a goblin hunt?" Kiria says. Xekar looks at the 2 men. "And you are?" "We haven't introduced ourselves," the man in black states. "I am Ishamae, and my companion here is Michio. If we are to fight alongside one another, it's in our best interests to know who we are. Your tiefling friend is quite easily angered, and that is a trait that will get us killed. I hope you can keep her controlled. Xekar. I am called Xekar, and it is in your best interest not to anger Kiria. That's her name, and it's a name you should remember, Xekar sternly says. Now, everyone. Let's calm down. No need for violence. I'm sure that we can encounter these thieving goblins as we are now. We can fight them here or there or here, but it's best if we're all friends. Right, Ishamae? Ishamae tells him that he is too drunk for speech and that he should let him do all the talking. I haven't introduced myself yet. I am Michio, and if you can't tell, I love a good drink, and luckily for me, all drinks are good drinks. Ishamae here and I have been traveling together for quite a while now. He begins to spit up, and it disappears as soon as Ishamae waves his hand. Now that everybody's been acquainted with, they head towards the cave, and Kiria comes along some tracks. However, these tracks appear to be a group of giants as they begin tracking something. The tracks led them straight into the entrance of the cave, Malthasar Mines. Here they can see the remnants of the aarakroca's caravan. However, everything of value had already been taken. They then decide to enter the cave, Ishamae in front, followed by Xekar and then Michio, with Kiria in the rear. Ishamae's dark vision would guide them. Xekar would back him up, while Kiria would cover the rear with her dark vision and her long range. Michio couldn't see in the dark, and he was still very intoxicated. Dead weight, it would seem that's what he would be. They disappear into the deep darkness of the cave. However, once they get inside, they see that it's more maze-like caverns than anything. Some areas are covered in thick layers of spider webbing, and so Ishamae leads them away, until they hear a growl and weapons clashing. Our group stealthily heads towards the noises, as they come across the markers of footprints. 3 giants were in the midst of fighting a massive cave bear. Michio proposes we help them kill the bear. However, both Xekar and Kiria unleash an arrow already from their longbows, striking the bear. In its rage, it only attacks harder and faster, digging its jaws around one of the giant's neck, instantly killing him. It then swipes at the closest giant, ripping its stomach open, and as its guts spill out into the floor, it also perishes. Now the last living giant swings his massive sword at the bear, striking it right between the eyes and killing it. However, seeing the giant tired and wounded, Xekar sees an easy target for him, and he tries his poisons, firing off an arrow dipped in toxins. The giant didn't even flinch at this attack, as it charged straight at the cleric. Michio attempts to calm down the giant, but his words fall on deaf ears. Xekar narrowly avoids the swing of the giant warhammer by this giant. He flies upward, but at the same time, the cave has a low ceiling. The giant then lands a critical hit on Xekar and knocks him unconscious. Kiria rushes over to his aid, firing a volley of arrows. The giant yells out in pain, but lands a punch on Kiria, knocking the wind out of her. He then raises his warhammer, ready to land the killing blow, when out from the darkness, a hand of black fog slashes across the giant's midsection. He falls to his knees in pain, and he struggles to stand. "Run! Leave while you're still alive. Don't end up like your companions," Michio cries out. And with the last of his strength, the giant charges at Michio. Vroosh, vroosh, vroosh. 3 magic orbs of black smoke come crashing down on the giant. "It's dead," Ishamae remarks. "Here, heal your dumb friends," as he tosses Kiria a potion. Kiria casts Cure Wounds on herself, before giving the potion to Xekar. "Thanks for backing us up, Ishamae," Kiria looks at Michio. Hey, you attacked him. We came here to hunt goblins, not take on a giant, the drunkard says. Nevertheless, we should rest. Let's find us someplace safe for a few hours. But unbeknownst to our group, amidst the shadows of the cavern, a humanoid arachnid had been keeping watch on them. As this group attempts to find a place to rest, they come across a wooden door, covered in thick spider webbing. With no other option, they enter. Inside the room, they find 2 bunk beds. Lucky us, Michio says. I call top bunk. And as he climbs up, a dog-sized spider leaps out and lands on Kiria's face. Get it off, she exclaims. As Ishamae utters some words, a hand of black fog once again plucks the spider off, before tossing it out at the door. Kiria then slams the door shut behind it. Now I'm going to bed. Ishamae, you keep watch, she says. And then they rest up. Outside the door, another arachnid creature awaits them. Session 2. End. Kiria, the tiefling ranger, level 2. Xekar, the aarakroca cleric, level 2. Ishamae, human sorcerer, level 2. Michio, the human monk, level 2.